because lion tastes good. Let's go get some more lion. Oh, hey guys, I know we started the video, but if you do know the quote of that movie, more power to you. Love it. Big Will Ferrell guy. But, unfortunately, we aren't going to discuss Will Ferrell quotes in this video particularly, maybe a future video, but we are going to discuss cranial nerves 1 through 6. So as we mentioned previously, feels like a long time ago, but it was actually the most recent video before this one. So if you check that out, cranial nerves are named by Roman numerals, so 1 through 12, and their Roman numerals. So we're going to talk about 1 through 6 in this video here. So the first cranial nerve number 1, is the olfactory nerve. It is purely sensory information. So we mentioned there's cranial nerves can carry parasympathetic information and or motor information and or sensory information. The olfactory nerves is just going to be the purely sensory information. So olfactory might look familiar. The actual word olfactory, that sense of smell, olfactory nerve does carry the sense of smell. So we've learned about this previously, I'm sure, multiple times throughout your I was going to say career. Yeah, we could say your learning career. So olfactory is associated with smell, and olfactory nerve does carry this sense of smell. So the olfactory foramina, which we learned about in lab, are there. It's part of the ethmoid bone. I had a brain fart for a second. So it's part of the ethmoid bone. The olfactory foramina forms a synapse with the olfactory bulb. So olfactory foramina, olfactory bulb. I'm not sure what I'm pointing up here, like you can actually see inside my cranium here, but you can imagine where the ethmoid bone is there. The olfactory nerve does form that synapse with the olfactory bulb there, and it carries the sensory info back to the brain. So any sensory info, say even touch a hot stove, you don't feel, or you feel the sensation with your finger, but you don't actually detect or you notice the sensation with your finger, but you don't actually feel it until it gets back to the brain. So this sends a sensory impulse back to the brain, and that's when you know there's pain. And same with the olfactory nerve. It forms that synapse, pretty much detects the sense, and then sends it back to the brain to actually get that sense of smell. So the olfactory nerve is cranial nerve number 1. So now we got cranial nerve number 2. It's the optic nerve. So we talked about the smell, and now we're going to talk about really the vision, as optic is associated with vision, as most of us know. So optic nerve is also purely sensory information with the cranial nerve here. So it's going to carry purely sensory info, and it deals with vision. So it is it comes out of the posterior portion of the eye. So think of here's my eyeballs, comes out the posterior, so the back portion of, so it goes into the eyeball. Say this is the eyeball, this is the front of the eye. It's gonna come out of the back, and then obviously with the other eye, it'll come out of that back as well there too. So if any thing in our view here comes from the right side, so the lateral right side of our vision here, it's going to go to the right brain. Now if it goes to the right middle, it's actually going to go to the left brain. And same with left lateral. If we see something in our peripheral here, it's going to go to the left brain. If we see something head on here, I'm looking at myself in the mirror, boom, goes in the left eye. It's going to actually be processed by the right brain. So it's a pretty cool thing about our brains, but we're going to learn why just a second. So the place where these optic nerves come in, and then they cross, which allow them to go to either side of the brain there. So it's like a little crisscross in the middle where they could go to the left brain or go to the right brain. But this little crisscross where the optic nerves intersect is called the optic chiasm. So optic chiasm, whatever the hell you want to pronounce it, it's the same thing. Optic chiasm, CHIASM, is where the intersection of the cranial nerves, or the optic nerves, happens. So they intersect, and that is what allows, when you see something in the right middle of the eye, to go to the left side of the brain, and when you see something in the left middle of your eye, to go to the right side of the brain. The reason that is the optic chiasm, which is associated with the optic nerve here. So optic nerve, it is very, very critical for depth perception. So this, able to see it through the right side, detected by your left brain. If you see it right lateral, it's going to go to the right brain. All this does help with depth perception. So that's optic, that's not optic nerve, that's cranial nerve number 2 is the optic nerve. And Roman numerals of 2 is just pretty much 2 eyes put together. I still struggle with those damn Roman numerals, but yeah, if you know like 10 of them, or if you know the first whatever 5 to 10, you pretty much just add on the V or the I or subtract the I, or that's nonsense. But we do need to know it, so make sure you know these Roman numerals here. But cranial nerve number 3, gotta lift the sleeves up for this guy here, is the oculomotor nerve. So oculomotor nerve, it actually has all 3 types of information. So it has motor information carried with it, sensory information, and parasympathetic information. So we'll first start with the motor information. Oculomotor nerve, cranial nerve number 3, does it controls movement of eye muscles. So there's 6 muscles that control eye movement and allow me to go like that, like that, like that, all that good stuff. I might just leave it grainy stuff for the rest of the. I'm gonna leave it grainy stuff for the rest of the video here. So this is your pap or nan cam here. But so the oculomotor nerve controls 4 out of the 6 muscles of eye movement, and so that's the motor portion, or the motor information that's carried by the oculomotor nerve. Also, is associated with sensory information. So more particularly, the sensory information is proprioception. So proprioception is pretty much muscle sense. So it's proprioception. Another way to say that is pretty much to what degree is the muscle relaxed or what degree is the muscle contracted. So it just helps us to control our eyes in this instance, so they're not completely, one's going to one side relaxed and the others contracted. This allows us to know, okay, our eye muscles are contracted, our eye muscles are relaxed. And same with like with proprioception, and really any of our motor information from the cranial nerves are going to have proprioception too. That bicep was a bad example. Don't think of that. But with the muscles of the eye, for instance, to what degree is the muscle relaxed or contracted? That's what proprioception is. So we got the motor information of the oculomotor nerve. I can't speak right now. I'm sorry, but you get the point. So quit making fun of me, all right? I'm just an old lady. But got the oculomotor nerve, cranial nerve number 3, motor information controls 4 out of the 6 muscles of eye movement. Proprioception, to what degree is the muscle relaxed or contracted, aka muscle sense. Also, there's parasympathetic information with the oculomotor nerve. So it's lens accommodation. So that's pretty much focus. The focus of the eyes on a piece of paper, the eyes on this pen, that's lens accommodation. Also, the oculomotor nerve, cranial nerve number 3, is associated with when the pupils constrict. So when we don't want to bring as much light into our eyes, pupils constrict. That's in part, or maybe in full actually, due to the oculomotor nerve, the cranial nerve number 3. So oculomotor nerve, motor information, 4 out of 6 muscles of eye movement, proprioception, and lens accommodation, aka focus, and the pupil constriction. So the closing, if you will, or the narrowing of the pupils. So those are cranial nerves number 1 through 3. So cranial nerve number 1 is the olfactory nerve. Cranial nerve number 2 is the optic nerve. Cranial nerve number 3 is the oculomotor nerve. Cranial nerve number 4, which is the smallest cranial nerve, is the trochlear nerve. It's there's motor information and sensory information. So the trochlear nerve, we're actually going to do cranial nerve number 4, 6, and then 5. You're going to see why in a second. But the trochlear nerve, cranial nerve number 4, controls one of the muscles of eye movement. So oculomotor nerve controls 4 of the muscles of eye movement. Trochlear nerve controls one muscle of eye movement and also proprioception. So as just a reminder, anytime there's motor information carried by a cranial nerve, there's going to be proprioception as well. So that's cranial nerve number 4 is the trochlear nerve. Cranial nerve number 6, we're going to go back to 5 in a second, is the abducens. Excuse me once again. Abducens, if you haven't put it together while we're doing this, controls one muscle of eye movement. So oculomotor nerve controls 4 muscles of eye movement. Trochlear nerve controls one muscle of eye movement, and then the abducens controls the other muscle of eye movement. So cranial nerve number 6, abducens, controls one muscle of eye movement, and also has carries sensory information as proprioception. So movement of one eye muscle and proprioception are the abducens. Cranial nerve number 6 is responsible. And then last but certainly not least is cranial nerve number 5, the trigeminal nerve. So trigeminal nerve, opposite, or I guess contrary to the trochlear nerve, which is the smallest cranial nerve, the trigeminal nerve is the largest cranial nerve we have. So the largest cranial nerve number 5, is the trigeminal nerve. So trigeminal nerve is kind of multifaceted. It's mostly sensory information, but we're going to see there's some motor information as well. So there's 3 branches of the trigeminal nerve. There's the ophthalmic branch, there's the mandibular branch, and then there's the maxillary branch. So we're going to talk about the ophthalmic branch first. So that's dealing with the eyes. Kind of has that ophthalmist, eye doctor. It has that association there. So you see that root of ophthalmic. So the ophthalmic nerve deals with the eyes. It innervates, or the nerve connects to, or the nerve affects places in the forehead, regions of the eye, the nose, and it carries tactile sensation, or the detection of touch, pretty much, if you will. So that's the ophthalmic nerve, or ophthalmic branch of the trigeminal nerve. Deals with the eyes, innervates the forehead, regions of the eye, the nose, and it does carry that tactile sensation. The maxillary branch also does carry tactile sensation that innervates the maxilla and the cheek there. So around kind of this region-ish is the maxillary branch of the trigeminal nerve. And then last but certainly not least of the trigeminal nerve, the 3rd branch is the mandibular branch. Mandibular branch also associated with tactile sensation, so detection of touch, pretty much. In simple terms, that's the feeling of touch is due to, in anywhere in the mandible, is due to the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve, but more specifically, portions of the mandibular branch that, the portions that the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve innervate are the lower jaw, lower lips, the actual mandible itself, along the outside near the ear, so kind of up toward this region here, and the tongue also. So this, if anyone's ever had a cavity or even been to the dentist for other reasons and gotten the Novocaine, this is where the dentist will actually they'll actually numb this nerve, because there is so much tactile sensation whenever you're working in the mouth. If you trigeminal nerve does come through the mandibular foramen in the ramus of the mandible here, but it's on the medial side of the ramus of the mandible. But that and that, they shoot that with their whatever the number we'll call it, the Novocaine. Dentist numb that, and that's why you can't feel your tongue sometimes. Maybe you get the Novocaine at the dentist, and you also obviously can't feel the dentist pulling your tooth out or whatever may be the reason you're at the dentist there. So that's the the three sensory branches of the trigeminal nerve. Cranial nerve number 5 is the ophthalmic branch, deals with the eyes. The maxillary branch, maxillofacial, and then the mandibular branch, obviously portions of the jaw, the tongue, the up on the lower lips, and then also up towards the ear. That's the mandibular branch. Those are the three sensory branches, and then that the motor information carried by the trigeminal nerve. Those are muscles of mastication. So the motor portion of the trigeminal nerve is muscles of mastication. So muscles that allow us to chew are associated with the trigeminal nerve there. So those are cranial nerves number 1 through 6. Going to talk about 7 through 12 in this next video here. So not trigeminal nerve number 1. Cranial nerve number 1 is the olfactory nerve. Cranial nerve number 2 is the optic nerve. Cranial nerve number 3 is the oculomotor nerve. Cranial nerve number 4 is the trochlear, had a brain for it. Cranial nerve number 5 is the trigeminal nerve, and cranial nerve number 6 is the abducens. Catch the second half in a second.